want to go through foundations, fundamentals of marriage. And I think one of the, they always say in marriage that communication is a big thing, and miscommunication is probably a bigger thing. And I think Rabbi Tawil already has missed it. You missed it. Your wife set this up. She was trying to get you to take her out for dinner. You didn't get it. You just went right over your head. And what lengths she'll go to, till the man gets it right. That. So we obviously you should know that when it comes to marriage, Rabbi Aaron Feldman, Rosh Hashiva of Near Stone, Baltimore. Somebody once came to him. They said to Rabbi Feldman, he's having trouble with one of his kids, probably a teenager. And he said to Rabbi Feldman, why is it so, this is the most difficult relationship in the world. Trying to raise kids is so difficult. So Rabbi Feldman said to him, you're right, it's difficult, very difficult. But still and always the most challenging relationship is marriage. Always. Why is that? Why is that? The answer is that if you have a child and you're struggling with a kid, most of you are just out of your teens, so you don't know yet. Wait till you have teenagers. Just wait till you have teenagers. And when you have teenagers, they're very challenging. Children are challenging. But your child, no matter how difficult, sometimes if he's out of sight, he's out of mind. So for example, you're having trouble with your 17-year-old or your 16-year-old. At least I know 8 hours a day, either he's in school or he's meeting with his parole officer or wherever he is, but at least I know that he's gainfully occupied. Your spouse may be out of sight, but your spouse better not be out of mind. I'll give you 2 examples. Imagine a husband comes home and he sits down to dinner. His wife would have a beautiful dinner. He sits down, he has a piece of chicken. The wife says to him, you didn't like the chicken? He says, no, it's delicious. How come you only had 1 piece? Normally he takes no prisoners. How come you only had 1 piece? Well, on the way home I stopped off to get a Danish. You didn't tell me, right? Now, it's not something that normally has to be recorded. Hi, I'm on, Danish again. And the husband. Now, what was the mistake? Because the husband should have known. Your wife made you a meal. So you're supposed to come home and you're supposed to eat the meal. At a minimum, SMS or whatever you people do, I don't even have a cell phone, I'm not sure how those things work. Send her a text message, by the way, I'm Danishing, so just realize, it's only going to be one. Now, what happened over here was, there's nothing wrong with having a Danish. The problem is that you didn't think about your wife. She was out of sight, but she should not have been out of mind. It's 24 hours. Same thing happens to a wife. Let's say a wife, you're out shopping, you see a nice sweater. I don't know what sweater it's costs, say 30 pounds. You go and buy yourself 50 pounds, whatever, buy yourself something for 30 pounds. You come home, and your husband says, oh, is that a new sweater? Yeah, when did you buy it? I bought it today. Well, how? Well, I gave him money, he gave me a sweater. Yeah, but, I thought we spoke about this. We have a budget. I thought didn't we discuss it? We don't have it. And what's going to be next? It's going to be a boat, right? I want to tell you, I don't know what it is with men in boats, right? I have never yet met the woman who's bought a boat after buying a sweater. She's like, well, you're going to buy a sweater every day, you're going to buy a sweater, and you're off to the races. And what did she do wrong? What did she do wrong? All she did wrong was one thing. Nothing wrong with buying a sweater. Why didn't you just tell him in advance? I know you didn't tell him in advance because then you'd never get a sweater. I understand the technical problem. The answer is that there has to be, that communication has to be this. Rabbi Feldman said, marriage is so difficult because it's a 24-hour, it's around the clock. I'm 2,000 miles away from home. I can make any jokes I want. I'm 2,000 miles away from home. And I'm still, my wife would get a call up, hi, how are you? Good. How come you sound like that? How come I sound like what? There's a long distance telephone, but you dropped your voice down. I mean, you don't want to talk to me? Yeah, no, I'm fine, I'm great. I want to talk to you all the time. We hang up, So, understand, it's so delicate. It's so delicate all the time. It's delicate and fragile. I want to tell you something else. You think it gets easier the longer you're in the best. I'm talking about good marriages. I'm not talking about the rocky marriages. I'm talking about in the best of marriages. If you think it gets easier, you're making a big mistake. To the contrary. In the beginning, when a man gets married, and we're going to talk about both sides a little bit, we'll develop this a little bit. So a wife, there's a little bit more tolerance because the wife realizes that he is essentially a savage who I have to take. So in the beginning stages, there's a little, they cut you a little slack. But after you've been married a while, I'm supposed to know better. You're supposed to be much more sensitive because you've improved, theoretically. and you're supposed to be more sensitive. So you sit down, and you're always, by the way, you're one word away from ruining the shalom bayis in the home. You're always one word away from, you sit down, how is supper? Oh, it's delicious. The chicken was great. The potatoes were great. You didn't like the salad? No, the salad was really good. It just wasn't, I don't know, maybe it was a little, just didn't have enough salt. You never like anything I make, nothing's ever good enough for you. Whatever, just a salad, just a lettuce, I didn't do anything. You're one move, you're always walking the edge. That's the overriding rule in marriage. Now, unfortunately, the state of marriage today is, as one young lady said to her friend, when I go out with a guy, I ask myself, is this the man I want my children to spend every other weekend with? That is not funny at all. It's not funny. It is it's funny. It's funny, but it's unfortunately that's the state of marriage. There is very little in life that's as good as a good marriage. Probably nothing. There's very little in life that's as bad and causes as much pain and frustration as a marriage that's not good. So that's what we want to try to figure out. I had a friend, not a friend, a guy's story I heard about. We open the door a little bit, we'll get a little bit more air in the heat should be off completely. I think I see a red light over there, that's bad. They once said, no couple is thermally compatible. You ever notice that? One of you is always freezing, one is freezing, and the other is boiling hot, and it's on the opposite extremes also. It's not even close. It's not like a little bit. It's like he went, he walks around in short sleeves, she's walking around with 3 winter coats and a sweater. That she concedes. She says I have a bad habit. Because usually in the house in Israel in summer it's very hot. In Israel in summer it's very hot, so every time we run the air conditioner basically the entire summer, but when I would leave the house, just as I leave, I just kind of give a flick and turn off the air conditioner. My wife says, oh, other people live here. I said, yeah, but it costs money, we have to save, don't we? So, what do you call it? That is I heard about a guy who went to a Rav to get a bracha before I got married. You're going to love this. You know what the bracha was? He said, I give you a bracha if you have lots of good fights with your wife. What kind of bracha is that? He says, listen, you're going to have lots of fights anyway. You may as well have them with a bracha. Rabbi Tuel, you're laughing. Your wife heard it. Okay. The Talmud says like this. The Talmud says, thank you. The Talmud says, "Hashorui below isha, sholui below bracha." When a man who's without a wife, who's without blessing, he's shorui without Torah. He has no Torah. He learned before he's married. It's a different type of learning. And then, puzzling it up, he says he's shorui below shalom. He's without peace. Now that is a puzzling statement. A man without a wife is a man who does not have shalom. He does not have peace. I was in a dormitory before I got married. I had a roommate. 2 years. I don't think we ever had an argument. I got married. 10 minutes after my chuppah, I was already in trouble. Right? What happened was there was a photographer. You know how it was like when you get married, there's a photographer, and he's got to get every combination of all relatives together. Okay, Chatan, Kala, Uncle Harold, and Aunt and cousin Sidney get together. I was tired of it. What's going on? At a certain point, I started, I decided, I'll have some fun, so I started making faces at the photographer. He was laughing, I was laughing, and I hear the young lady next to me, who happened to be my wife for 10 minutes, and she's smiling at the photographer, and she said, can you please cut that out? And I'm like looking, and I'm like, oh, she speaks. I thought that, I've done whatever I want up until this point, now, so I asked the young men, I always ask the young men, what have you learned in 2 months, 3 months of marriage? I always like asking, get their reaction. So one young man said, what did you learn in 3 months of marriage? He says to me, kind of a Dave's look. They always have a Dave's look. He says to me, don't make any independent plans. Right? That was one young man. But another young man said to me, he thinks women are missing the chromosome that makes for effective communication. So I said to him, why? He said, well, he was taking a shower and he didn't have shampoo. So he called his wife to bring him some shampoo. So his wife couldn't find shampoo because they were out. So she comes to the door and she said, we don't have shampoo because last time we went shopping, we didn't make a list. We have to start making lists. So he's there in the shower waiting for shampoo, and she's giving him a drasha about making lists. So he said to me, I'm telling you, the communication, just, they're missing the chromosome. That's what he said. Okay, now let's talk about those chromosomes a little bit. So, why is it so difficult? Why is it so challenging? So the great Torah commentator, the Abarbanel, if you understand this, you understand the whole principle. Gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, you're going to be upset with me most of the evening. Okay, I'm telling you right now, you're probably going to be upset with me most of the evening. And you know what? I don't care. I'm leaving the country. You can take it out of her. The Abarbanel says, why is it that marriage is so challenging? Wouldn't it be easier if God would have just made men and women biologically different for the sake of reproduction, and then everybody is exactly alike emotionally, intellectually, logically? It'd be wonderful. Then a husband and wife could eat dinner together, sit down on the couch, watch the football game together because of a mutual interest, and everybody gets along. Instead, the husband wants to watch the football game, the wife wants to go to the Italian opera to hear some lady cry in Italian about how her boyfriend just killed her husband killed her boyfriend, and somehow the two of them don't agree on the plan. Now, why do we have to be so different? You know what the Abarbanel says, not a joke. He says, because men have an ego, men are selfish, men are immature, men are self-centered. Marriage is God's way of teaching a man, don't think so much about yourself. There's somebody else you have to think about. And not only are we going to make you think about somebody else, she's going to be so different from you in every way imaginable that you're going to have to change. You're going to have, the marriage essentially is so that a man, a wife is called an Ezer Kenegdo. She's a helpmate against him. That's a strange type of helpmate. She's a helpmate, Kenegdo, opposite him or against him. She's opposite. You know why? Because that's exactly what's going to teach a man to not be as focused. Listen, guys, I go through this. Now it's your turn. So the man has to learn, don't think about yourself so much. Suppress your ego a little bit. Don't be so selfish. Don't be so self-centered. More than that, men get married and have incredibly unrealistic expectations. My approach to marriage, I'm putting out a little pamphlet soon. My approach to marriage is 99% of the problems in marriage are the husband. The other 1% is also, but I don't want to be too hard. Why is that? Now pay attention carefully. A woman is a natural giver. A man is a natural taker. If a husband treats his wife well with the proper respect that he gives to her, a woman will, most cases, obviously nothing applies to every single marriage, most of the time a woman will naturally reciprocate. She might even start crying when a husband treats her well. I'm so happy. Why are you crying? Lady, what happened to you? Right? When people treat me well, I laugh. Right? I don't cry. That's one of the differences. When a man treats his wife well, she'll naturally reciprocate. A wife treats her husband well, husbands often think, well, if a little is good, more is better. And they'll take and take and take. And therefore, the man is a natural taker, has to really work on himself harder. That's the truth. Now, men get married with unrealistic expectations. You know the story, this guy gets sick. He goes to the doctor. His wife is waiting outside the waiting room. He goes to the doctor, and the doctor says to him, he examines him. He says, I want you to wait in the waiting room. I want to speak to your wife. The wife goes in, husband's in the waiting room. The doctor says, listen, your husband is very ill. He needs 3 nutritious meals a day. You can't ask him for money. Don't ask him to do anything around the house. Don't jet to him at all. He has to be relaxed and comfortable 24 hours a day. And if you don't follow my instructions to the letter, your husband may die. Wow. He goes out to the waiting room. The husband said, what'd he say? What'd he say? She looked at him, she goes, he said you're gonna die. Men get married. Men get married, and they think, yeah, she's just gonna cater to every wish, whim, and desire. She's gonna just pamper me and baby me and take care of me. That is extremely unrealistic. Number one. Number two, the husband comes to a rabbi. Says to the rabbi, I want to divorce my wife. I want to give her a get. He says, wow, that's very severe. Why? Because she's always grouchy and grumpy, and our marriage is dry and stale. There's no oomph to it. I've had enough. The Rav says to him, listen, it's a very severe step to take. Before you do that, there are things we should try. I have an idea. In Judaism, when somebody has difficulty, trouble, so we often add a name. I got an idea. Let's add a name to your wife. Maybe that'll help. The guy's enchanted. He says, okay, what's your wife's name? Her name is Sarah. You know what? Let's call her Chaya Sarah from now on. We'll call her Chaya Sarah. Maybe that'll help. The guy says, "Oh, nice." The girl says, "1 second. It's not that easy to remember a new name. You have to practice. So what I want you to do for 2 weeks is you practice. Then you come back, you let me know how it's going. So I want you to practice. When you go home from now on, just for practice, you understand? In the morning, when you wake up, say, 'Good morning, Chaya Sarah.' Practice that name. After you eat a meal, say, 'Thank you for the meal, Chaya Sarah.' You practice. At night, before you go to sleep, say, thank you for everything, Chaya Sarah. And ask her, 'How was your day, Chaya Sarah?' And then let's see if that helps. 2 weeks later, the guy comes in and says, 'Rob, you're a genius at name changes. Unbelievable. He's always in a good mood. She's always smiling and always there.'" What happened? He was treating her like a boor. Right? He was behaving like a boor. And all of a sudden he's saying good morning. He's thanking her. He's showing a certain amount of appreciation. And the marriage improves. Every single marriage, I've never been in a marriage yet, where a husband decides he focuses on the marriage, a husband, if he puts effort into it, the marriage will improve. It's a fact. I can't help it. If somebody does not agree with that approach, either you haven't been married, or you're just one of the exceptions to the rule. There are exceptions to the rule. Everybody, young lady was who came home and she was really upset about something. So I always tell the guys when they get married, if your wife starts, always when you're married, the men should always walk around with a fat, put some peanuts or M&Ms or something in your pocket. And whenever your wife starts fetching about something, pop a few in your mouth and just go, because that's what she really wants to hear. When I got married, I want to say, I made all the mistakes. When I got married, you're laughing. When I got married, I didn't know. I was raised with brothers. I had no sisters. I was already in a severe handicap when I got married. And I remember 2 incidents that took place when I got married. The first one was I came home late from a wedding. And when I came in, I think I was married about 2 months. I went to a wedding in Israel. I came home. And my wife said to me, "Why did you call to say you're going to be late?" I said, "Well, I was actually looking for a public phone. I couldn't find one." She looked at me, she said, "You have an answer for everything." Well, you asked a question, I give an answer. I know it was a good answer, it was an honest answer. She clearly was not satisfied, and I know because I had tuna fish that night. So obviously, okay. About a week later, she asked me to take the garbage. An hour later, she said, "Why didn't you take the garbage?" I said, "Well, I was going to, but then you asked me to do the dishes. By the time I finished the dishes, I forgot about the garbage." And my wife said, "You have an answer for everything." I think, yeah. So I'm not that thick. I understood, don't answer, but I had no idea what hit me. I was clueless what hit me. And of course, ladies, what was I supposed to say? "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't call you. I'm worse than a goat on Yom Kippur." That's the correct response. And I had no idea what was going on. It wasn't until a few years later I read Men Are From Mars, which I recommend everybody reads Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I read the book and I realized what happened. I picked up the pattern, but I didn't cop what had happened. It's like a husband walks into the house, wife just finished washing the floor in the kitchen. "Why did you just walk across the floor?" "I just washed it." "Well, I had to go to the refrigerator to get an apple." Wrong. Right? What are you supposed to say? You're supposed to say, "I am an inconsiderate boor. Put me, incarcerate me, put me in prison. I will never do it again. You're in prison." That's basically how it's supposed to look, right? And I didn't realize what happened. The answer is she hadn't answered any question. I thought she was asking me a question. She didn't ask me a question. When she said, "Why did you walk across the floor? Why didn't you call me?" That was a question. That was a statement. It was a statement. "You are a boor." That's what she was saying. Now, it took me a while to hop that. Then it brings a bigger question. And the bigger question is, so why didn't she just say it? All right. So now we go back to Rabbi Will in the restaurant. Okay. Imagine a husband comes home. I'm sure you've been through this. Husband walks into the house. He says to his wife, "Want to go out and get something to eat tonight?" "What do you mean?" What wasn't clear about that? Which word didn't you understand? "Do you want to go with me to eat?" What wasn't clear about that? And what happened? I asked, "Well, you want to go get something to eat? You mean at a restaurant?" "No, in a bus stop." "Of course at a restaurant. What did you think? What do you think I meant?" So you know what? You know why she responds that way? Imagine she wanted to go out to eat. How would they usually start? Husband walks into the house. Wife looks at it. "Does the house look a little dim?" We both know it doesn't look dim. We've got new lights put into the house. The house is very bright. She's telling me the house looks dim. She's saying she's been in the house all day. She's saying she didn't have a chance to cook. She doesn't feel like she wants to go to a restaurant. So the response to "does the house look dim" is, "You want dairy or meat?" That's the response. Because she wants to go out to a restaurant. Now, why say it directly if you can say it like that and make a man's head spin? The answer is because we communicate differently. And a man has to my wife till I get out right now. A man has to understand that the communication, the lines of communication are not always, he has to understand. You're going to have to work on yourself to try to develop an understanding of what your wife's needs are. It's very important in our generation. You keep in mind, what's your priority in life? I want to ask you a provocative question. You ready for this? Just imagine that right now is your moment of grace. You could ask for any three things that you want, which will provide you with a happy, content, fulfilling life. But it's not a fantasy. It's not a fantasy. Pay attention carefully. If you want to be the CEO of a corporation, I'll give that to you. But it goes with all the potential ulcers and aggravation of being CEO. I want to be a CEO without any potential aggravation, that's fantasy. You want to be a CEO? You can be a CEO. I want to have a lot of money. You want to have a lot of money, but you're going to have bodyguards. I want to have a lot of money with no threat of kidnapping. That's a fantasy. Whatever you want, you can have. But it goes with the real car. I had a young man told me he wants a Harley Davidson 10,000. Now, you want a Harley Davidson 10,000, but you want to never get racked up. That's a fantasy. It goes with all the risks that go with it. I will give you 30 seconds to think of the three things that you would put on your list, top of your list, if you could choose right now any three things that will give you a happy, content, fulfilling, or whatever adjective you want to use. Any three things you want. Give you 30 seconds. I suggest you don't look at your wives while you're thinking this. Wives, you can look at your husbands. Otherwise, they won't do it. Three things. Okay, now I'm going to ask you for a show of hands, and you can switch, by the way, if you hear ideas that you hadn't thought of. I'm going to ask you for a show of hands. How many of you on the list have a lot of money? I like honesty. Okay. How many of you have on your list power, control? My game, I get as many better. How many of you on the list have good health? Those of you who don't have good health, it's not too late to switch. Life ain't worth much. Life ain't worth much without good health. How many of you have on the list good marriage / family? Good marriage / family. Family relationships. I suggest you raise your hand.
It's already good.
It's already good, yeah, but your health was in peril just then. I once did this at there was a seminar in Israel for Arachim, and I asked this question. I had like a middle-aged couple sitting in front of me. So I asked, how many of you want to like this, good, that? I said, how about a good marriage? So the husband had been sitting there just kind of spacing out. The wife raises her hand. The husband's looking at me like this. The wife looks at him like this, and he goes, oh my God. Up goes the hand, like almost two hands. I surrender. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. You ready for this? Are you living your life right now? Every single one of you told me health. Okay, health is a different issue. Every single one of you told me that marriage is the number 1 or 2 priority in your life. Everybody in every audience I've ever spoken to, health and marriage are always 1, 2. By the time sometimes people go around, oh health, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, it could change. But everybody in every audience has ever said health, marriage, 1 and 2. And then everybody has something on number 3. One guy said a lifetime supply of beer. Right? He's a very deep person. Right? And other people, guy wants a lot of money, wants control, power, fame, glory, whatever it is. But health and marriage are always 1, 2. Question, gentlemen, especially, but it goes for the wives as well. Are you living your life right now in a way which you just said publicly is going to promote the number 1 ingredient for your fulfillment, contentment in life? Are you living your life in a way that's diametrically opposed? Are you living your life in a way where you spend enough time together, you treat each other properly, you work on your marriage? Are you living your life in a way that pulls you apart, you have no time together, you're busy chasing an illusion of either pleasure, money, honor, whatever it is, which often runs down your health and ruins the marriage. And a person has to think about that concept. What is number one in my life? I just said publicly that's number one in my life. How much time and energy and effort are you really putting into the marriage? It's very important. How to do it, perhaps we'll answer later. I just want to give a couple more points. A husband has to appreciate his wife. I'll get to the women in a second, gentlemen. We'll get to them in a second. First, I'm going to pick on you a little bit more. Husband has to appreciate his wife. The Gemara says, Isha Tova Matana Tova. A good wife is a precious gift. For instance, a man comes home, you know, a wife, you bring in wheat from the field. You don't eat wheat. Talk about a farming culture. A wife takes the wheat, she grinds the wheat, she bakes it, she serves it. A wife is constantly giving to the husband. A husband gives to the wife, but a wife is constantly giving to the husband. Isha Tova Matana Tova Labala. A good wife is a precious gift. The Ben Ish Chai says, you know what it means she's a precious gift? It could very well be that in a previous incarnation, you hear this? In a previous Gilgul, the husband messed up. The wife got it right. He had to come back. She was brought back, and she doesn't need to be here. She was brought back only to help him get it right the second time. Isn't it interesting? It's not something to bring up, ladies. You know, if you ever have an argument, listen, I don't really have to be here. Don't go there. Don't go there if you ever have an argument. But just realize what an Isha Tova Matana Tova is, what a precious gift a wife is. We say every day, Baruch Atah Hashem, we make a blessing, Baruch Atah Hashem. You know what Baruch Atah Hashem means? You are the source of all blessing, Hashem. You know why we say it 100 times? Baruch Atah Hashem, you are the source of all blessing. You know why we say it 100 times? If you think about that when you say it, your relationship with God won't be the same at the end of the day. If every time you say a bracha, you are the source of all blessing, God who gave you the water. You are the source of all blessing, God who gave me the food. Whatever the bracha you make, your relationship. Imagine a man thanking his wife for everything she does. You are the source of my joy in life. Thank you for keeping me company. You are the source of my joy in life. Thank you for giving me supper. You are the source of the joy in my life. Thank you for not using the credit card. Can you imagine if a husband would thank his wife for everything she does for him, and he thanks her, genuinely thanks her, and he appreciates her, for the whole entire relationship changes. That's the essential ingredient of marriage. Now I want to go back to that communication thing for a second. Maybe we should take questions now at the halfway point, and then we'll continue a little while. I'm not sure if you all, any questions so far? And by the way, anything you're wondering about, everybody else is wondering about too. It's not unique to your marriage. It goes on every marriage. I can tell you exactly what goes on in your marriages, and it's not it goes on everywhere. Okay? Anybody would like to ask a question at this point? Any questions at this point? Anybody at all?
I'd like to ask a question.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. How to what is the best way to deal with the technology nowadays? It's a bit different to the olden days when young couples had time to be with each other. What is there an ideal way with regards to phones, with regards to going out, with regards to internet and technology?
Anybody else have that question? Is everybody wondering about that? Okay. So in the old days, we always told wives, when your husband comes home, don't be on the phone. That was the advice we gave to wives. In the old days, there used to be, many of you are too young to remember, you never saw it, there used to be an instrument that was attached to the wall. It had a cord, right? And make sure you didn't wander too far. That was called a telephone. And we actually had a dial manual. You're not kidding, but we made it, here I am, we survived it. Now, part of the advice we gave women before they got married was, your husband comes home, get off the phone. Don't be on the phone if he's coming home. You know what time he comes home about the same time every night. When he comes home, don't be on the phone. And if you're on the phone, get off the phone. So they would say, well, it's hard to get off. Well, it's not hard to get off the phone. I say, I got to go, my husband's home, bye. It's one of the best kindnesses you can do for somebody else. You let them know how important it is to get off the phone when a husband comes home. Technology nowadays is not only destroying marriages, it's destroying us, it's destroying every individual. I see something like husband and wife go for a walk. You go for an evening stroll. Finally, you got 5 minutes together to go for an evening stroll. You're even walking together. And you're going for an evening stroll. He's on his cell phone, she's on her cell phone. Right? Well, what do you do yourself? You're out of your mind. You're allowed to turn the machine off. You're allowed to leave it at home. You don't have to take it everywhere you go. Just like, look, what do you think is going to happen? I don't have a cell phone. I don't have a cell phone. I don't have a cell phone. I don't own a cell phone. Why? Because I figure if anybody needs me, they'll find me. to leave a message. It calls the U.S. Secretary. If anybody, how many emergencies are there? And if anybody needs me, they'll find me. If they didn't find me, they don't need me. And anyway, how many often does it happen that somebody calls you on your phone and says, I want to give you a lot of money? That hasn't happened yet. It doesn't happen that often. And therefore, it could wait. Whatever it is, it could usually wait. So they'll find me. But you got, my goodness, you didn't get married to a phone, you got married to a human being. Why are you letting that interfere? Is that more important than the person sitting across from you? What happens to us? So obviously, you're professionals and you're involved in the professional world. In today's world, you can't be without it. On the other hand, I don't want to go into some of the other pitfalls of technology and the internet. That's for a different time. But the idea that should dominate the life when you yourself have said that this is your priority, so the person has to stop and think, are these my priorities or not? A little bit of thought that goes into it, number one. Number two, I would give you a piece of advice which applies primarily to men, but it applies to women as well. Before I do, are there any questions? Anybody would like to ask a question at this point? Any questions? Well, you got it all worked out. That's great. We should have spoken about a different subject. I'll give you a piece of advice. And I don't believe you got it worked out. And I don't believe that it's a bed of roses 24 hours a day. And I believe that there's constant in a marriage. You could have it in the course of an hour. Good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. Right? If the mood changes, unpleasant. I don't believe that anybody's marriage is just wonderful and terrific, just around the clock. It's like it could be everything's going well, and if you get irritated with you go out and spend the evening together, they get irritated with each other. So I think that a person where it all boils down to, again, is where the men are not focused enough on the marriage. A wife, by definition, is focused. A wife is generally in the home. A wife is making the home, even a working woman, but she still has more responsibility in most cases for the home, so it's in their children. A man could easily lose focus and lose sight of the marriage. I always recommend every man, they have books in all the good bookstores, Jewish bookstores, they don't have to be Jewish books, but in all the Jewish bookstores, they have marriage books. By the way, the proliferation of the books is an indication of what the needs of the generation are. If they're writing marriage books, it's because people's marriages are crumbling. That's why they're writing the books. Doesn't mean if they make cookbooks, women are cooking well. That's one exception. But if they write marriage books, it means that the marriages are not going well. Now, if a person goes in, read a book, any book, they're easy to find in the Jewish bookstores. They always have a picture of two doves on the cover with their ring in their mouth, always smiling at each other, which is a mistake. In my opinion, it should be two vultures with baseball bats on the cover. That's what should be on a marriage cover. That's really what could happen. What could happen in a marriage? If a man gets any one of these marriage books, any one of them, Men Are From Mars, The River to Kettle the Bird, One Is to Be One Forever, Forever One, Forever Not With You, whatever the book is. Any man who reads a book, a marriage book, 10 minutes a day, I guarantee you, as much as anything in this uncertain world could be guaranteed, your marriage won't improve. You know why? Because everybody knows in the Select Yeshari and the Path of the Just says, we all know what behavior is proper and inappropriate. Everybody knows it's not polite to interrupt, and it's not polite, nice to be selfish, and we shouldn't have an ego. We all know it. The reason that we don't perfect our own character traits is because it's out of sight and out of mind. The way Musar works is you read 10 minutes a day, it keeps you focused and on track. A man that marries, that reads a marriage book, any book, 10 minutes a day, I guarantee you, and if it didn't work, you let me know. I can guarantee you your marriage will improve and your wife's going to notice it very quickly within 2 or 3 days. Because when you read it, you apply it. And when you apply it, she's over the moon, as they say. And you'll notice it. The happier she is, the more, if you read, you continue treating her better. You treat her like a queen, she'll treat you like a king. That's the way it works in there. I'd like to speak to the wives for a few minutes. Okay? The most difficult thing for a man is empathy. What I mentioned earlier, that idea of a wife who fetches and the husband gives that practical solution. Now, all men have been trained, we've been taught. When your wife says to me, if you ever face up, if she's cleaning something in the house, she says, my back is hurting. I was standing on a box and I couldn't get up all reach up. I had to reach the broomstick, my back is hurting. I said, well, maybe we should buy a step ladder. Wrong. Because I'm supposed to go, ooh, I hate when that happens. Ooh, that's horrible. Or when she says, you know, I went outside, I was waiting for the bus, and I was waiting 15 minutes for the bus. I said, well, we should really get a bus schedule. Wrong, you do that. Ooh, I hate when buses do that. You know, that's something like that. That's what we're supposed to say. Now, when I come home, the last thing I want is empathy. If I say, I go up to the bus yet, if I'm waiting for a bus, I say, you know, I was waiting for a bus to do it. My wife would say to me, oh, that must be so painful. I don't want painful, not painful. I need the bus schedule. Give me the darn bus schedule. Right? There's the needs are completely different needs on an emotional level. I want to show you something. When, you know, there's a statement the Talmud says like this, pay attention carefully. Talmud says, a man has to love his wife as much as himself and respect her more than himself. He has to love her like himself and respect her more than himself. Now the obvious question is, why is it not parallel? Why is it not symmetrical? It should either be he loves her like himself and respects her like himself, or he loves her more than himself and respects her more than himself. Why is there a discrepancy in the two statements? And the answer is that when it comes to love, we all love ourselves. When it comes to the material, physical world, I take care of myself very well. If a man takes care of his wife on the material, physical level, as well as he takes care of himself and is concerned for her as well as much as he's concerned for himself, he's doing very well. When it comes to respect, that's where we run into a little conflict. Watch women speaking to each other. Watch how women communicate. You ever watch two women talking? It's enchanting, right? Women talk to each other. They usually make direct eye contact. Their faces are about 2 inches from each other. They make direct eye contact. They even move their head in sync. They kind of look at each other like this, and you hear them saying things like, "Oh, I know what you mean. Oh, 100%. Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, that right." Men, right? Do I speak truth or not? Men rarely look at each other. Men could sit back to back for hours. Watch two guys watching a football game. First of all, we never look at each other. We basically grunt at each other. And you only hear us say, "You're crazy. You're out of your mind." He is not. And this is my best friend. Now, you have a problem. Because now you've taken one from that group and one from that group, and now they got to communicate with each other. Now there's a problem. Because when a husband and wife, you know the story, this husband's reading a newspaper, the wife is talking. "Harold, you're not listening to me. I'm listening to every word you say, Bernice. You're not listening with your eyes." "Oh, I see. That's what eyes are for." See, I always thought eyes are for seeing, not for listening. No. I thought, oh, yes, oh, I see. Oh, okay. Oh, right. No, that's so interesting, Bernice. You know, much worse than the sports page I have over here. So a person understands that there's, now, what that means is when it comes to loving your wife, if you love her as much as yourself, you're doing very well. When it comes to respect, you have to respect her at her level. And the most basic form of respect is eye contact, which men don't always need. Probably the best 2 weeks of my life. To this day, probably the best 2 weeks of my life. My older brother had his first child. I was 19. My mother went to Israel for 2 weeks. We were living in Chicago at the time. That left me, my father, and my younger brother at home. The minute she was out the door, the television went onto the kitchen table, the newspaper, Sports Illustrated, for the next 2 weeks. Supper, we didn't say a word to each other. Once in a while we'd say, potatoes, meat, and that was it. Watching the ball game, almost like an ESPN newsroom. That's what it looked like on the kitchen table. When Mom was home, we could get away with that because, you know, she said, "Let's communicate. You know, how is school?" I haven't been in school for years. I was suspended years ago. You know, let's communicate. So we got, you know, now, a wife and a husband, that communication thing, that respect is the most basic form of respect is looking at another person. The second basic form of respect is never interrupting. I had a guy once said, I once gave a cheer to the men. I said to the men, you know, when your wife speaks, never interrupt her. And it's not a difficult thing. If you hear her voice, don't talk. So I said it, so a young guy looked at me, we got married for a short amount of time, about 47 years. The guy says to me, he goes, I said, and he heard me, he comes over, he says, you know, I got a problem, because when my wife starts, you know, I mean, she could really go on for a while. So I said to him, first of all, that's just too bad, because you gave her a ksuba, you married her, and you're going to listen well. And number two, you could go on for a while also. And men, when you have a conversation and the wife says something, and eventually the husband has had about enough, now he's going to give the real opinion because he understands everything so much better, and he expects her to then look at him with just in awe and enchantment. Oh, you're so wise. Oh, wow. You read the same newspaper I did, but you know so much more. And a husband then interrupts her. The most basic form of respect is not to interrupt. Okay, now I want to say 2 words to the women that we're punching. The first thing a wife has to know is make your wishes clear. Make your wishes clear. Women have this fantasy they're going to be swept off their feet by Prince Charming, who's going to then, there's a big word, isn't the word anticipate, right? That they should anticipate all of her needs. Now, men are bad anticipators, right? Men are really bad anticipators. Men don't know what a wife wants, and if they do, sometimes they've tried it and it hasn't worked properly. So they just gotten, right, because it didn't work. I tried to anticipate. So I remember one time I washed the floor. I a national hero. I went over, I decided I'll wash the floor without telling my wife. So I washed the floor. So she comes into the house, oh, that's not the right stuff to use. You don't use toothpaste on the floor. You're supposed to use soap or whatever it was. Never forget it. I tried my best. You didn't appreciate it. You want something, just tell me what you want. I'll be glad to do. I'll do whatever you want. Just ask, number one. Number two, there's one habit women have, which is the parallel of the men's problem. Men, the most difficult thing that men have is the empathy thing. I married over 30 years, and it's still not a gut reaction. It's still not a natural, it's still a thought, right? Grunt, groan, say, something. It has to, it's not like she fetches, I go, I have to remind myself. It's just not a natural reaction. Now, women have a problem. Women are insatiably curious. Women are curious, and that's based on the Torah. There's a medrash that says that when Vashti made a party, notice it's Gam Vashti Amalka Asasam Ishtei Noshim. She made a party. The medrash says, what was she doing at the party with the women? So what in the medrash, she gave them a royal tour. She gave them the tour of like Buckingham Palace. This is where the king eats. This is where the king sleeps. This is where he entertains. This is where he drinks. And the medrash says, we see from here, women need to know everything. Now, I will tell you, ladies, there's something that drives men absolutely batty. Oh, I come home, I got some exciting news. Now, you know how when you have exciting news, you like to build up the story. You don't just come into the house and splash it out. We are 6 million pounds richer. I like to say exactly how we got there. They come into the house, say, by the way, I got some news. Really? Yeah, I bought a lottery ticket. What color was it? Well, it was yellow. Just wait. And I scratched off some numbers with what? That's not the point right now. And what did you see on the way there? What's that? And then by the time you get so frustrated, you know what? I gave the money away. You don't deserve it. Next time somebody asks questions, and you'll be happy. That is a habit that women have to work on. My wife has worked on it over years. She's not perfect, but she's gotten better because I've pointed it out to her. Now, last point, and then I turn it over to questions. A wife has to know, husbands also, there's a fundamental difference when you get married. And Yaman mentioned this to me yesterday. I was very impressed with. Few have put it in terms that somebody put in the exact statement that somebody told me years ago. When a couple gets married, the husband thinks of his wife in terms of, she's wonderful, and I hope she's always like this. Isn't that beautiful? Right? That's what a husband's thinking. A wife is thinking, he's got wonderful potential. And there's all the difference right there. There's all the difference right there. Because the wife is going to say, the wife is going to understand intuitively that he is her life project. The husband's job is not to train the wife. The wife's job is to train the husband. That's what an Ezer is. That's what an Ezer Connector is. Therefore, if a couple understands that that's what the marriage is about, that's what the marriage is about, then they're on the road to having a proper marriage. They understand each one's function. There's a beautiful story. I'll tell you 2 stories, and I'm done with this. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, one of the great leaders of the Jewish people. There were 300,000 people. I think people want their burgers already. There were 300. Oh yeah. I just want to tell you, by the way, when a husband comes home at night, ladies, and also golden advice, when a husband comes home at night, 2 very important things have to happen. He needs to eat, and you need to tell him how hard your day was. Now, if you do it in the proper order, your home is Gan Eden. Your home is pure. If you do it the wrong order, your home is not Gan Eden. So when a husband walks into the house, that's not a time, hi, well, how are things? I'm sorry, and always having the husband looking past her to see if there's anything on the table. Get him seated down at the table. Let him sit. He'll put a potato in his mouth. You'll start fetching. He'll go, what can be better? You got Gan Eden right there. What can be better? Now, I can tell you two stories very quickly. The Rosh Zalman Auerbach was one of the great leaders. He was different, I think, in 1992, something like that. There were 300,000 people at his funeral in Israel. 300,000 people. What a great leader of the generation. Always smiling, a gentleman, a sweet man, a Torah guy. So many people there. There was a secular Israeli policeman there. He said, if I knew there would be this many people at my funeral, I would drop dead on the spot. That's what he said. There's so many people. At his wife's funeral, she predeceased him by a few years. Rosh Zalman approached the body. There's a tradition in Judaism that when one spouse dies, the other one asks forgiveness for anything they may have done. Rosh Zalman approached his wife's body. He said, we were married over 60 years. There's a tradition that the living spouse has to ask forgiveness. You know as well as I do, not once in 60 years was an unpleasant word exchanged between us. Therefore, I have no need to ask forgiveness. Said this in front of 10,000 people. So somebody saw his children and asked his children, they were already older as children, and said, how could it be your parents were married over 60 years and they never had a disagreement? And his son said, oh, my parents had plenty of disagreements. They had hundreds of disagreements. How can you not have disagreement? You're a man, she's a woman. Well, how can you not have a disagreement? Of course, they have plenty of disagreements. But just because you have a disagreement doesn't mean you have to become unpleasant. Couple has disagreement. Why should you have a disagreement? You hear what I want to say. I hear what you want to say. Okay, now we'll try to reach a solution. Meaning we'll do what your wife wants. But just because you have a disagreement doesn't mean you have to turn nasty and unpleasant about it. Number two, Rabbi Meir Chodosh was the Mashgiach of the Chevron Yeshiva for 60 years, a man of perfected character traits. His wife said to him, somebody asked his wife afterwards, what was it like married to him, being married to him? His wife said it was like being in Gan Eden for 60 years. Every man asked himself, what would my wife say? What's it like being married to me? And by the way, it's a good idea, gentlemen, always ask yourself, how would I like to be married to me? It's a very sobering question. How would I like to be? Me, with my unreasonable, selfish, ego, immaturity, how would I like to be married to me? A very sobering question for a husband to ask. That itself should fix it up. There are a couple more essential points. If anybody has any questions, go ahead. Oh, I thought somebody had a question. Would anybody like to ask any questions? Keep the questions as opposed to comments, yeah.
Couples who work together, how are they supposed to do, how does that work?
That's a good question. That's a very good question, and the answer to that is that couples in general, I've found, some couples can do it, and some couples work better. They work together by doing things separately. In my house, my parents always did everything together. In my marriage, my wife and I have a clear, we function better. If I have to get airline tickets, let's say, this is always an issue. Husband gets on the phone to order the tickets, and the wife's in the background, right? Not good, not good. What did he say? What did he say that? And then the husband says, okay, we need two tickets, we want 2 tickets to France. And the wife is like, we're going to Bulgaria. And the guy says, okay, so we'll take like a window seat, and I'm like, I guess I'm claustrophobic. I can't sit by the window. She's in the background. Hey, lady, take the phone and make the call. So I have a rule now. Whenever my wife wants me to do one of these things that involves call, one of these calls, got to talk to him. And so women generally say, well, what did he say? Right? And be kind of in the middle of the program. What did he say? I have a rule in the house. I will tell you everything you want at the end. No middle questions. Let me finish the job. Otherwise, you can do the job. And my wife understands that. She understands exactly where I'm coming from. Because I'm in the middle of doing something. I'm making 4 calls. I got 3 numbers written down. I'll get back to you. He'll call back. I'm on hold. So I found that some couples work better together, and some couples work better separately. A couple that is working together has to make sure that they're able to spend all their time together and then have a marriage. Sometimes by absence makes the heart grow fonder is very, very true. And you should know, a woman who's running the home, a very wise man, in the best of marriages, a wise man once said, when a man leaves the house in the morning, a woman breathes a sigh of relief. Right? He doesn't want him home all day. Right? Okay, it's good. It's some time together. Now, off my planet for a few minutes. Give me a few hours alone. The idea that more time together is a fundamental mistake. It could work for some couples, but I think they're the exception more than the rule. Any other questions? Yeah, I know someone's gonna raise a hand. Look at the food coming. Yeah, other than that, do you want to bring out the food that will take questions? Is the food ready? You bring out the food, then I'll take more questions if you want. Or nobody has questions, I'll just take my food and go home. Those are the choices. Yeah, go ahead.
Good question. Compromise. How do you compromise in a marriage?
Excellent question. How does a husband compromise in a marriage? The answer is like this, and I don't know exactly what compromise and under what circumstances, but I will tell you a rule. If you understand this, I will improve your marriages. You can make the checks out to Kaplan with the text. I learned early on that decisions have to be made in marriage. Now, when the decisions are made, you often have different opinions how to make the decisions. Pay attention, very carefully. Imagine you go to the doctor. Person goes to the doctor. Every 20 trips to the doctor, I argue with him. One time out of 20, I'm going to be right. 19 out of 20, he's going to be right. There's one problem. I don't know in advance which is that one time that I'm going to be right. So I have to decide a policy. Either I always listen to him or I always listen to myself. Because I don't know in advance. I always think I'm right, and 19 out of 20 I've been wrong. So I don't know. So I better decide. He's got a better batting average than me. I better let him make the decisions. You ever have a teenager? You probably as teenagers yourself. Did you ever say to your parents, well, if you would have listened to me, this would have never happened, right? And you ever say teenagers either say that or you said it, right? There's only one thing the teenager's getting wrong. Because he's talking about this particular case where he happened to be right. But if we would always listen to that teenager, we'd all be in prison right now, right? So he's off. It doesn't work that way. Somebody's got to make the decision, and it's got to be a policy. I learned early on in marriage, a wife has a better intuition. She has less personal biases. And therefore, early on in our marriage, I'm telling you this honestly, my wife makes the decisions. Sometimes her decision is that I should make the decision, but that's a decision. And I respect that. If she wants me to take the responsibility, but I've learned that as a batting average, she has a better batting average than I do. Because women have an intuition, they have a sense, they see the entire picture. Men are very tunnel vision, and therefore I'm better off letting my wife make the decision. Sometimes the decision she wants me to take over, that's fine. Because then she understands intuitively that I'm the better suited to make the decision.
How often does that happen?
What's that?
How often does that happen?
It's never happened yet, but eventually. Now, I just want one more point. When you're bringing out the food, I just want one more point. When most of the fights are about money, isn't that true? Most of the fights in marriage are about money. I want to tell you something, gentlemen. The Gemara says the bracha in the home is because of the wife. So why do you have money at all? You have money because of her. So a wife wants to spend a little bit of money, make an issue over the money. When you're making an issue over the money, you're actually costing yourself money. If you respect your wife, which means you let her have some money, you let her spend, you let her make decisions, by doing that, you're getting bracha in your home, you're actually going to earn more money. Therefore, to make an issue over money, make a fight over money is silly, it causes the marriage to deteriorate. Okay, maybe we'll take a break, and then we'll bring out the food, and then we'll